Yeah, so it's real common that you start seeing. It was the most frustrating thing for me when I was getting close to milestones like 300. I remember that's still very vivid in my mind. I
Right.
would get up to like 398, and
Uh-huh.
then you'd see it crawl up to about 290, 298, 299, hit 300, and you're like, yes, I hit 300, and then you go back the next day and you're back down to like 297, and you're like, what's
Right,
going
right.
on? And it keeps playing with you like that, but it for some reason, and I think really what it is that they discover that people with multiple accounts have logged, have subscribed,
Right, right.
and for some reason it figures it out and detects it, and
Uh-huh.
um it will remove some of those subscriptions. So that's why you'll see it. It's not that people are unsubbing, is that YouTube is removing people with multiple accounts that
So
they
it's
figure.
YouTube doing that, huh?
Oh yeah, yeah. They
Yeah,
don't want
yeah.
you to. They're not in a hurry to get you to those milestones where they have to fork out. Although there's a misconception that you're gonna hit 1,000 and all of a sudden everything in the world becomes prettier and brighter. Nah,
Right.
it's just it just it just means you got to work that much harder because now you gotta keep those milestones that you're able to reach and make
Right,
sure you don't
right.
fall back.
Yeah. Yes, I see a lot of people, the ones that are making money's got, 40, 50,000 subscribers and stuff like that. And
I think
I'll
there's a
probably I'll probably never make it there though.
ah, you never know. Look, if you continue to do the work you've been doing, and slow and steady, wins the race.
Right,
It's a marathon. So if you continue to do your videos, continue to do whatever it is you're doing now,
right,
without the expectations really of I think is when it's good to have goals. I get that,
right,
but
right,
you got to have realistic goals. And
right. Exactly.
here's the thing that people always seem to forget. All these people that we see on today that are over 50,000 subscribers, they've
Hmm.
been doing this no less than 10 years.
Right,
It's
right,
it's one it's a and I know there's a lot of ways supposedly out there that you can kind of manipulate the algorithm and have it go in your favor, and they got all these other tools, but the reality is at the end of the day you got to put the work in.
right.
There's just
Exactly.
no shortcuts. There is no
Right,
shortcuts. I don't care how you look at it. I know there's all these services that YouTube will offer to try to help you, but the funny thing is it'll help you achieve certain goals,
right,
but you still have to meet the other requirements. And it's the way I find this very interesting is people will fall into this trap where I want to get my sub count out, so they'll do whatever it is that they need to do to promote that. Well,
right,
what good is it to have all that sub count if you don't have the views or the
right.
hours?
Exactly.
Because it doesn't promise you views or hours.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. There's really no shortcuts. You're trying to accelerate to meet certain milestones, but at the end of the day, you still got to go back and
Hmm.
everything else up to par with it. So, I mean, I've, I've kind of figured this out just from listening to the people that have the bigger channels, and
Right,
it's
right,
all time. There's just nothing. I mean, I don't know of any of those big channels who hasn't been on for at least 10 years.
right.
And yeah, there's other channels on YouTube that blow up overnight,
Hmm.
and but they're not necessarily in this niche.
Right, right. They're into pop culture or something like that.
There was something very interesting that I found, but again, it's one of those things where I guess I guess with money you can do anything. You can, but
Something
if
I
you're
don't have.
yeah, but if your point is to try to use this as a source of revenue, then it's pointless to be dropping more money than you're going to get in
Right,
return. That's the way I
right.
look at it.
Yeah.
There's a
I'm
there's a channel called Tanks for Nothing or something like that. He only had like, I think now he's up to 4 videos. Yes, he's got millions of views on his videos.
right.
But if you start digging around, you find
Hmm.
out that he's using a company that is helping him. I mean, look, I'm not going to take anything away from the talent that is still have to be able to speak in front of a camera, be able to
Right.
put thoughts together, and
Hmm.
be able to record. I mean,
Right.
there is an art form to the people
Hmm.
that want to become very big. There is an art form. There at the end of the day, it is art. I mean, it's a performance.
Yeah, it is.
And but he uses I think they're called black something that they were pointed out to a friend of mine pointed out to me. He goes, dude, it's it's a production company. And you start digging around and okay, it makes sense. The guy's only has 3 videos. Granted, they're the kind of videos that actually do very well because it's over a long period of time. Kind of like with
Right.
Flo, was it Flo or Fo? Fo the flower horn. He kind of cracked that code. He or she, I think it's a he. Um, where it's a video that he would put out over the course of several weeks or months, evolution, and put it
Right.
together with. Well, that works. I mean, that's why
Hmm.
that channel grew to the point where it was at. So that's what they've taken that formula. Now they got a company and a whole group of people that are specialized and promoting videos on here, but it's costing money. It's
Yes,
probably going to
it
be
is.
you're going to pay a lot more money than what you're going to get in return from
Hmm.
any revenue ads or anything like that.
Right. Right.
So that's why there's at the end of the day for us, like you or I or most of us here, as a matter of fact, hard work. It's just you
Hmm.
got to do the work. You got to do the reps.
I'm
Just got to continue to do stuff.
right. Right. And I'm not afraid of hard work. I was in the Marine Corps, so I'm really not afraid of hard work.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if it's a generational thing. Well, you know what it is. I think for people like you and myself is we when we were coming across the internet, it's not what it is today. It was still
Hmm.
in its infancy stages, and we've
Right.
seen it
Right.
grow. We've seen it grow, and we've used it at least for the most part of my life. It's been more of a tool to learn stuff.
Right. Yes,
It's
I
been
agree with that.
instead of having to sit there and read a book or a manual on how to repair something, it
Hmm.
was real easy for me to type in on the search. I got a whirlwind washer model XZY, and you know, and I would plug it in there, and it would show me. And then
Right.
repairs or whatever. You start kind of tinkering until you find
Hmm.
the solution to the problem that you have. And that's the way this has always. Well, the way it used to be for me, now it's become a source of entertainment, which
Right.
I would have never have thought going into this that this would have been a source of entertainment. My
Right.
sole source of entertainment, because I seldom watch TV nowadays.
Uh huh. I like watching a little bit of TV, but um, I got into doing the YouTube thing is because I was at work and I started watching about fish keeping because I want to get back into it again, and pulled up a couple videos, and I keep hearing all these people, you got to buy this, you got to buy this, you got to buy this, got to buy this, got to buy this. By the time you're done for a 10-gallon tank, you got $300 set into it. And hobby doesn't have to cost that much. You can go on to Craigslist, you can go on to Facebook Marketplace, you can pick up used tanks, stuff like that. So it got kind of aggravating with me because I know it could be done cheaper, and I want to help people who want to get into the hobby and not have to go out and spend a whole bunch of money not knowing whether or not they're going to get back into it or stay into it.
Well, before we get too far in, because we kind of jumped into this right in the middle of a conversation, let's take a step back
Okay.
and kind of introduce you. I always tend to do. This is one of the reasons why I try to have my guests come on like at the last minute. If it's somebody that's already done a couple live streams that I'm aware of,
Right.
usually I'll just tell them come on 5 minutes before because I know myself. I'll get caught
Right.
up in asking questions and stuff backstage, and then when it's go time, like 5 minutes of a good conversation are left in
Right.
the backstage, and I don't like doing that. I try to save the bulk of the conversation for the live stream,
Right.
which is
Right.
what
Right.
most of the people are here for. They want to know who you are and what you're all about.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
but anyways, going back to, I just wanted to stop and thank everybody that's joining us today. We've got quite a bit of people coming in. Our first one was Benjamin Peters. Thank you for being here. Carr, Thanks, Culture. Oh, okay. You're changing the name up. Stephen P. Thanks for being here. Al and J Shrimps. Mark Sterlson. Thank you so much. Jamie Paladino. Thank you for being here. Let's see who else. We got the Bud Files. Thanks for joining us today. Shady Grady, Michael. Thanks so much for being here. And well, that's everybody. Pretty much they'll start trickling in here as we get going. But
Okay.
before we get started, Bill, I want to say thank you so much for accepting my invitation and your willingness to come on here with me. I know I've kind of commented a little bit back and forth on some of your videos. I've been pretty interested in what you've been doing. I see a lot of yourself in me. I see a lot of myself in yourself and what you're doing. Especially because you took a break away from the hobby and recently you decided, I don't know if recently you decided to come back, but it hasn't been long. And I know that you've started doing videos. So we're kind of like the old farts that are starting to try to get in with the younger crowd. But so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Bill, a little bit about your background, talk a little bit about your channel if you want.
All right. Well, a little bit about me. I'm a Marine Corps veteran, of course. Spent my time, got out, and when I was a kid, I was into fish keeping a little bit when I was a kid. And over the years, I've been through a lot of hurdles in my lifetime. Uh, Moving here and there, had a divorce, got cancer, 2 forms of cancer in my lifetime, and I lost a child. And I've been in and out of fish keeping over the years because to me, fish keeping for me is therapeutic. Okay. I can get away, I can go down, watch the fish, and just relax because every fish is different. They have their own little niche, you know. Um, you can watch one does one thing, one does another thing, you know. But I've been in and out of the hobby since I was 7. Okay. And my first tank I had, my mother set it up. It was a guppy tank, of course, for kids. And I was devastated because we had a Christmas party and a kid turned up the heater on my tank and fried all my fish. So we had to start back from square one. And then I got into goldfish. And then, of course, I went into military, got out, moved down south, and lived down there for about 14 years and had fish down there. So I've been in and out of it, in and out of it. And I'm to the point in my lifetime now that um, I'm tired of working for everybody else, making everybody else rich, you know. So it's kind of aggravating when you start making other people rich all the time. And I know what I can do. I have a mindset. There's no room for failure. I will make a success out of it. And I started the YouTube video like we were discussing before because I've seen a lot of things on YouTube. People out there telling you, well, you got to buy this tank, you got to buy this, you got to buy this, you got to buy this. And by the time you get done with it, a 10-gallon tank is going to cost you $300. And it really doesn't have to cost you that much. And there's a lot of things you can do it yourself, make things on your own, you know, and that's what a lot of my videos are about is getting out of it cheaper because you don't have to spend all that money to enjoy the hobby. All you need is a glass box or a glass bowl to really enjoy fish keeping and the hobby. Um, I got into nano fish because a lot of the channels out there they push 125, 200-gallon tanks, all these bigger tanks and stuff like that. Not everybody has room for that. They may only have room for a 10-gallon tank. They may only have room for a 29-gallon tank. And the best fish to keep in them smaller tanks is nano fish. So that's why I got into getting my guppies back in here, platies, mollies. I got some rice fish now, you know. So there's two different there's kind of like two different worlds in fish keeping. There's the cichlid people who's got the Oscars, cichlids, arowana, stuff like that, and then there's people who have the smaller fish, and that's what I want to even base my business on when I get it going. Is I want to focus on the nano fish because there's probably probably 40-50% of the people out there that can't have the bigger tanks, you know. So that's why I'm doing the nano fish.
Yeah, nano tanks are very suitable for people that live in like apartment situations.
Correct.
It gives you that opportunity to still be able to have a little bit of nature inside your house,
Hmm.
and not have to necessarily have to have the large aquariums like you said.
Right.
For me, I'm more geared towards the nano side of the fish also, or the smaller fish, but
Hmm.
it's not necessarily for lack of space. I think what I enjoy the most about having the smaller fish in the community tank is that one, I can have multiple species,
Hmm.
and
Right.
usually and then number two, for the most part, they are drama free. What I get is seldom will you ever hear somebody that keeps a small community fish talking about the fish went crazy and killed everybody in there.
Right.
Usually it'll be some type of a ammonia spike or something that'll devastate your aquarium, but it's seldom ever fish behavior related.
Hmm.
As beautiful as those bigger fish are, that is the one thing you have to deal with is attitude. Those guys, as
Right.
as big as beautiful as they are, they have that attitude,
Oh,
and
that's true.
and that's one of the things that so I'm much like you, where I like to sit and enjoy watching the different interactions. You can have multiple species when you have nanofish. You can have multiple species in a relatively small space
Hmm.
and see the different interaction. To me that's the most gratifying part of the fish keeping, is to be able to enjoy the fish. I
Right.
mean, that's maintenance, I know, is part of it, and there is some therapeutic, I guess, value for doing maintenance, and I get that. But for me, there's nothing better than to sit like you are right now in your fish room, dim
Hmm.
down the lights, only have the aquarium lights on, and just sit there and relax. And actually, just you get bored of one tank, you turn to the other one, and you see what's going on there. And I find it that you'd start learning really interesting behavior of your fish when you're able to do that. To sit there and
Hmm.
just observe, and
Right.
not always have to be messing with it. Plus,
Hmm.
I'm lazy, so I like easy, natural stuff. All that to say that I don't like work.
Right. I hear
But
that one.
yeah, so I know you said you did the military. Where are you? Did you retire from the military, or you just
No,
did several years of service and then said, "See you
I
later"?
I did my four and got the hell out. The Marine Corps
Okay.
was changing for the worse, and I just didn't want to be it anymore. My first duty station, I was in Sicily for 2 years and had a good time over there. And then when I got back to the fleet, um, down in Camp Lejeune, uh, this was the 80s, and there was still segregation going on in the 80s. And I came from a unit for 2 years where everybody had everybody's back. It
Mhm.
didn't matter who you are, because in the Marine Corps we're all green, you know. And to be subjected to that, going back to the fleet where the Marine Corps is a brotherhood, to have to deal with that type of bullshit,
Mhm.
I couldn't deal with it anymore. So when my time was up, I got the hell out because I just didn't want to deal with that mindset, you know. Um, I don't care who you are, where you come from. Treat me like a man, I'm gonna treat you like a man. You know, it's the way it is. It's the way life is.
Well,
And
it's the craziest thing that the only place where we're willing to separate people by ethnicity is here in the States. Because you go as an American, you travel outside of the United States, you're
hmm.
always an American.
Right.
People will say, "You're American. You're American." They're
Yep.
not looking to see if you look white, black,
Hmm.
Asian.
Right.
They know you're American. But we come
Exactly.
back to the States, and all of a sudden it's like, no, you're Mexican, you're black, you're
Yeah.
this, you're that, and it's like, really, where everybody else acknowledges around the world us as American,
Right.
we do a disservice here in the States of calling ourselves, separating us, which is crazy. But
It,
you
it
know,
it's I'm not into that. I'm not going to be into that. I'm not going to fall down that trap. Um, I've got a lot of good friends, in the Marine Corps, and I call them all brothers, you know, and that's the way it is.
Yeah.
There's no other way to explain it. I mean, like I said, I had a tight group of people when I was stationed in Sicily for 2 years, and we just had a reunion last weekend, and a bunch of us got together down in Missouri, and it was like yesterday that we were together.
Well,
You know?
there's something to be said of having to go through boot camp with a bunch of
Uh
knuckleheads that it just kind of, there's that instant bond, I guess, that happens that is forever. I mean, it's just you guys are all going through the same hardship. You guys are dealing with the same thing. And granted, the military does an excellent job of instilling teamwork. And
right.
it's you leave there believing it 100% that those are your brothers. That's those.
Hmm.
And the thing is, you have to, because if you have to go to a conflict and go to combat, that's
Right.
the people you're going to have to rely on. Nobody else.
Exactly.
Nobody else
Hmm.
is going to look out. There's no political figure. There's no people on the other side of the conflict that are going to be worried about your well-being other than the guy to your right and to your left. That's it.
Hmm.
Those are
Right.
the only people that you can count on, and that's it.
And
So
after
yeah, I get
and,
it.
a- and after all these years, there's some of them I still can call on today. You
Yeah.
know, and that was I got out in '88, so went in '83, so that's telling my age right there.
Well, the interesting part is that that brotherhood extends just beyond your branch of service, because you know I don't know what it is, but I tend to gravitate to other vets. Just
Right.
being former army myself. It's just, and it's there's always that ball busting, where it's like, you jarhead or this and that. And but at the end of the day, if it really boils down to it, we know we've all been through the similar experiences,
Exactly.
and there's that relatable experience that you fall
Hmm.
back and you understand. And
Right.
if it was something that was very easy, everybody would do it, and not everybody
Exactly.
volunteers up to do what we did. So, you know, is and again, it's not, if I was able to get through it, anybody can do it. It's just, but you gotta be mentally strong, I think, more than anything else. Because
Exactly.
the physical part, your body's gonna condition to that
Hmm.
and you'll get stronger. But if you don't have a good head on your shoulders, you're not gonna make it through.
Right.
Um, and that's I think that's the biggest challenge is having being able to be mentally sound to be able to deal with a lot of this stuff and understand um, that it's a process. I've
Right.
always told younger kids that are going in, look, it's like trying to pledge for a fraternity,
Hmm.
because at the end of the day, that's what it is. The military is a fraternity,
Right.
and you got to
Exactly.
go through that. Except for being a pledge week, it's a pledge boot camp,
Mm.
and you got to put up with all that stuff. And they're gonna
Yep.
make you run through loops and hoops and all that stuff. And you know, I tell people, what if you can't deal with the stress of boot camp, you forget about trying to deal with stresses of a real situation.
Right.
If
Exactly.
you can't overcome and operate under those controlled environments,
Hmm.
you're not going to make it. You're not going to make it. And I think that unconsciously for most of us is something that we've kind of figured out. Especially the older we get, it's like, okay, I get it. I understand what that whole process was, and what the goal was to try to get us all to understand that is like, look, when shit hits the fan, you got to go. You
Hmm.
can't sit
Exactly.
there and just look like a deer in the headlights. You got to be able
Right.
to react. You got. So it's. I guess that's why when you meet other veterans, you kind of all have that experience you can kind of associate with, and I don't know. There's a weird automatic, almost like an understanding, you
Hmm.
know, and it's I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I've always found that experience with most. I don't think I've. Well, no, there is, there are some vets that I've come across that I've never been able to jive, but those are the guys that get discharged dishonorably for doing stuff.
Yes.
And usually that's the reason why they got this, dishonorable discharges, because they couldn't adapt. They couldn't,
Right.
there's just,
Well, I've lived my life since I got out of the Marine Corps. It's like you take one day at a time. You take one step at a time. Um, don't try to set goals that's unattainable. Always make your goals attainable, and you make short-term goals and stuff like that. And I always tell people I get in conversations with, just take one day at a time, take one step at a time. Tomorrow's not ever promised. You know, enjoy what you have, and don't dwell on the small stuff. You know,
do you find that was your philosophy as a young man though? Because it wasn't mine. It's changed. I think my view in life has really turned around. I think once I hit like 40,
hmm well, my
and
my
then it's
my my life changed drastically in 2007. I was working, working, working. I was taken out on disability and trying to figure out. Here I am, 40 years old. What the hell am I going to do for the rest of my life? I ain't going to sit in a rocking chair. I'm too damn young for that. So I went back to school, and I ended up getting my degree. But during the time that I went back to school, 2009, I lost my son. So that was a big eye opener for me. Um, and that's where I really started changing my thought process, started changing a lot about me. Um, Tomorrow's never promised, you know, and enjoy what you have today. And that's how I try to live my life. And then right after that happened, it was not even a year after that, I got cancer. And come to find out, the cancer I got is from this Camp Lejeune cancer stuff that's going on down in
oh,
Lejeune right
okay.
now. So my cancers came from that, and I overcame two of them. Now I'm possibly working on a third. So
Oh wow.
yeah. So for me right now, this getting into the fish and stuff like that, and trying to help other people and things. That's my goal right now. It's not this YouTube thing. It's not the YouTube algorithm. It's all about helping people out there. I've been in and out of the hobby since I was 7. I'll be 59 here in another month. So I've been 52 years in the hobby in and out, and I've kept a lot of different fish. And I've always gone back to the nano fish, you know. And like I said earlier, you watch videos and stuff like that of people out there, and then I think a lot of the videos came out during COVID when people
Hmm.
had a lot of time on their hands, and now a lot of them are not around anymore. You know, that I've seen, that I've subscribed to, they're not making videos anymore. And there was some good knowledge on some of those people, and I want to be able to spread some of my knowledge that I have too. I mean, I don't know everything. I'm not going to claim to know everything. I don't get into the scientific names, this goobly gob fish, all that Latin crap. That's way beyond me. I try to keep it real. And that's the reason why I started tuning in, watching you, is because you keep things real on the channel.
Well,
And that means that to see people keep it real, it's hard to find these days.
I guess. I mean that. Yeah, I guess it's. See, I don't know how much that is of a generational thing, or or what, because most of the people that I know growing up, even till now, are pretty much real people. Those are
hmm
the people that I'd circle myself around.
hmm
Um, you know, I know we can sometimes get awestruck by certain figures and stuff like that, but when you stop and realize and think about it, it's like, well, they're really no different than me or anybody else. So they're just another person, you know.
Exactly.
So I don't know. It's just, the other thing is, and I've always preached this to anybody that's doing any content. It's always going to be easier to play yourself than to try to play
Hmm.
something else. I mean,
Exactly.
I couldn't keep up trying to be a persona for very long because I'd get tired of it. The only thing I know I'm really good at playing is me, who I
Hmm.
am, what I
Right.
stand for, and if I, and also very very cognizant that I am who I am today for all the choices that I've made in the past, whether they were right or wrong.
Hmm.
Um, and I think a lot of the wrong ones were the ones that molded me to become who I am today. That I learned from those experiences and said, you know what, that's not necessarily the direction I want to go in
Hmm.
because it's not going to be everlasting. Well, not
Right.
everlasting is the wrong word, but it's just it's not going to be the road to success. And
Right.
I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, a lot of mistakes, a lot of things that I can look back and said I could have done different. Um, the difference is that I've learned from those and said,
Hmm.
okay, I know if I continue to do this, this, and this, the results are always going to be the same. So let me try
Right.
something different. Let
Hmm.
me, you know, but again, I think a lot of that is with time and
Hmm.
experience, and the older you get, there is such a thing as getting older and wiser because if you're paying attention, you don't have a choice but to learn.
Right. Exactly. And I learn things. I watch other videos and I learn things on stuff that I don't even know about. I'm not afraid to learn. I'm not too old.
Yeah, I've always said when people say, "Oh, I'm an expert," turn around and run the other
No.
way because I mean, you might have a lot of experience in something, but I just don't. There's so much. I don't think we collectively know 10% of what there is to know of the entire hobby because there's
No.
always new
No.
stuff coming up. Um, there's so many. You learn different things by venturing out of conventional thinking and
Right.
willing to try unconventional methods.
Hmm.
And but I think you can kind of do that type of stuff when you have a little bit of understanding or the basics of understanding of what it is to keep fish. One of
Right.
the things that I've always said about my fish room, I like to push the boundaries sometimes to see if it's true what people are trying to convince me of. Like
Hmm.
I don't know why people get so hung up on this whole thing about filtrations. What
Right.
type of filtration you need to have.
Right.
Well, the one that works for you. Which one is
Right.
the best one? The one that is working for you and it's having success for you. Um,
Exactly.
that's the best filtration.
Hmm.
Now, if you understand the nitrogen cycle, then you can play with that type of
Right.
filtration. You
Hmm.
can go to different areas and try to adjust it for whatever is going to suit your need. Because I never understood those guys that'll say, "Oh, the best filtrations are this, and this, and that." Well, yes and no, because if you're trying to, in our case, like we're breeding the smaller nano fish and stuff like that,
Hmm.
well, there's certain filtration that's going to be counterproductive for that
Correct.
because
Exactly.
you're either going to suck it up the intake tube, or it's going
Hmm.
to be entirely way too much. Hey, beautiful, not a live stream. Look, that's Bill. Say hi. Hi,
How
Bill.
you doing?
How are
How you
you?
doing?
He says
Nice to
hi.
meet you.
She just got in from work right now. Yeah, no, it's just yeah, I never understood those whole camps on you got to do this, you got to do that. It's just I've learned over time, and in life in general, there's more than one way to do things.
Hmm.
Some things might be a little bit easier, but at the end of the day, thank you, Audra. Um, it's just I don't know. It's just I think also a lot of it has to be the willingness to be open minded because the
Exactly.
more open minded you are, the more you're going to learn.
Hmm.
I never take for granted the fact that somebody can teach me something, no matter what their age. My grandkids have taught me stuff, and they're 8, 9. They'll point
Right.
out stuff to me all the time. Stuff that I might be overthinking and stuff, and it's like,
Hmm.
yeah, you're right. It's not important. That stuff is
Right.
not important. So I don't know.
a lot of times when I start trying to overthink something, I just step away for a little bit. I would step away, have a cigarette, go outside, maybe have a beer, think about it, and then come back to it after that. And I usually get it figured out, you know. Um, just like you said about filtrations and stuff like that. I mean, you got to do what's going to work for the setup that you have. I mean, I had back when I was out of work going to school and stuff like that, I had set up a 55-gallon tank and I had a hang out back filter. And I got in back in the nano fish because that's my zen, kind of like my zen. And had some guppies in there having babies, and all of a sudden they disappeared. I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? I look in the back of my hang out the back filter. Guess where they are? They're in the hang out the back filter, you know. And with nanofish, especially if you keep them and you don't separate the parents from the babies and stuff like that, sure they're going to predate on them and stuff like that. That's just nature in itself. You're always going to have the survivals. The strong is always going to survive anyway. But
Yeah.
having like a sponge filter in there and stuff like that, that works fine. Just a little bit of aeration in there, a little bit of oxygen, things like that is all you really need. You know,
Well, you're old enough to remember when undergravel filters.
correct.
Well,
Hmm.
that's all we had. You know.
Yep.
I mean, you had the box filters, but for the most part, the easiest thing for me to find were always undergravel filters, and you never had any issues with fry getting sucked up or
Right.
disappearing. I mean,
Hmm.
they might get predated on, but that was a whole
Right.
different issue.
Exactly.
Um, so, and then all of a sudden, I don't know if it happened to you, but I know it was in my late teens that I started when I started, and that's what I started with that undergravel filters.
Hmm.
And I went away from the hobby for almost 20 years. I
Right.
was, that long a break. When I come back, all of a sudden, gravel filters are the bad guys in the
Right.
aquariums. And it's like,
Right.
wait a minute. I remember that's all there ever was,
Hmm.
that and a sponge filter. I think by the time I got out, hang on the backs were kind of making their way. They were really expensive though. I do remember
Right.
that. And, but, for years, people have kept them with under gravel filters or, yeah, for that matter, no filters,
Hmm.
and,
Yeah.
that's not necessarily true, but no mechanically operated filtration would probably be the correct thing because you have biological filtration.
Right. Right. And see, when I first started, when I was 7 years old, I remember the filter that was a little box filter. You put charcoal in it, you put some floss into it, put an airline to it, and that was your filtration there. It was before undergravel. Undergravel didn't come out till I was like 10 or 11 years old when I got into some goldfish and stuff like that. So what I had then is a whole lot different than it is now. Back then, everything it still works today. You can still put a box in the corner with a little bit of charcoal on it, a little bit of filter into it, or filter floss into it, and it works because the charcoal is adding oxygen in your water anyway. You know, the only thing you have to do is pull it out, pull the old floss out, put the new in, and you're good to go.
Yeah, but I think at that point, they're more than anything else. You're using them as a polisher, really, because your filtration really is in your aquarium, and that's what people
Right.
fail to forget. It's
Hmm.
on all the surfaces inside your aquarium, and it's not until I started messing around with just biological filtration, not running anything in my aquariums, that you start realizing, yeah, your filters for the most part are just water polishers.
Right. Right.
They're going to remove small particulates in the water column, but
Hmm.
um, you know, the best example, and I know he might not be the one that really pushed this, but you can't help but to look at LRB
Right.
and see what he's doing. And it was always said, "Oh yeah, you can do it in a small scale, 20 or
Hmm.
less. You can pull that
Right.
off." Well, he's got like a 300-gallon pool.
Right.
One of those
Hmm.
above ground pools where he's doing that.
Right.
So, you know, it's just I think is we get too caught up on the hype of
Hmm.
what people are saying and not stopping to really try to understand what is happening.
Hmm.
And I think the more you're willing to learn and say, okay, I've always told people, if you got a little bit of experience, you understand your fish or you know how to test water.
Mm-hmm.
Why not try to set up something without a filter?
Right.
And if you're concerned, test your water on a daily basis. If you see the parameters shoot up in a direction they're not supposed to, well, you can always add a filter
Right.
that you have, or media cycled or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not going to learn about the real nitrogen cycle until you start playing around with filterless tanks. One of the persons in here that I know that does that on a regular basis is like Master Aquatics, Eduardo. Him and I have had conversations about that. He's got a sunroom because he lives in Florida, and
Mm-hmm.
all his aquariums are outside, and they're just they're out there in his back porch, and
Right.
he just does water changes on them periodic, every so often, but he just runs aquariums pretty much similar to the way I run them,
Mm-hmm.
and but it's just, but he was willing to try it out and see what happened. And you're not gonna learn unless you're willing to do those things. And
Mm-hmm.
it's always going to be easier to fix the problem if you see something going sideways, because you already understand what needs to be done to address it.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll be surprised if you start playing around with aquariums where you do the biological filtration. Um, it it just makes it that much. Eventually, I like to go where like LRB, where it's just quiet in here. I can
Right.
sit and truly enjoy. If I can hear water running, it's because I want to hear it. I want to
Mm-hmm.
hear that effect of the water splashing on something, because there is some relaxation to that, to
Exactly.
that nature
Yep.
sound. But it won't be for, because I have to depend on it.
Mm-hmm. See, one thing I'm going to start going back to. I played around with some substrates and stuff like that. Some of the other stuff out there, and when just got back into it, I went to a dirted tank right off the bat because I was watching Father Fish, LRB. I was watching all them guys about the dirted bottoms and things like that. So that's where I started out, and I still have a couple of dirted tanks now, but I went ahead and changed things to see what it did, how it worked, and things like that. And I really don't like these clay substrates or whatever they are. I'm going to take all my tanks and I want to go right back to a dirted bottom tank. I'm probably going to try. I'm knocking it around my head a little bit. Is a couple years or last year, I went to Lowe's and they had this compressed potting soil that didn't have what the little balls in it and stuff like that for fertilization, but it
Mhm.
was just all compressed. So I want to take that and I want to mix it with some coco coir because coco coir is a really good base anyway, and mix that all together and then put a cap on top of that because if you're going to have live plants, you got to dirt is the best way to go. Roots get down in there, they're fed all the time. All your waste and everything goes down through the substrate into the dirt, helps fertilize and everything like that. So I'm going to go back to dirted tanks, but my way of doing a dirted tank and see how it works. I think it's going to work out fine because I did plenty of gardening out there. I did raised worms, things like that. So I know what works. So I'm going to actually go back to that again.
Yeah, it's um yeah, I've run mostly dirted tanks in here, but I've even with the dirted tanks, I've kind of played around with it, because I
Mhm.
also try to do the father fish method.
Right.
The one issue I had with that was the excess nutrients in the water column. And
Hmm.
my biggest mistake, and I know this is a lot of people that are trying to start with planet aquariums, is we don't buy enough plants to get
Correct.
that aquarium started.
Hmm.
Um, I make the same mistake where I thought, I'll buy a clump of these and a clump of those and a clump of those, and as they grow out, I'll cut them, replant them, and now have more plants.
Right.
The problem is you don't have enough plants in there to absorb all those excess nutrients, so you're going to be fighting algae the entire time.
Correct.
And so that was an issue. As a matter of fact, that's an issue that I'm fighting with right now in a display tank that I set up here at one of our local venues here.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with that is I went against my gut instinct and I let other people influence my decision of how I was going to set it up. And
Right.
now I'm paying the price for it because I'm having to deal with all those excess nutrients because we went with an enriched soil.
Uh-huh.
And even though we had plants in there, there's still not enough plants. What I what I should have done and I didn't do. Oh, thank you, Eddie. What I should have done was I've seen empty fish tanks where he would take that soil and contain it to the areas where you were going to have the plants
Right.
and put them in little bags so
Mm-hmm.
that those plants would have access to it immediately and not necessarily the entire bottom of the aquarium because there's going to be areas where the plants are you're not really going to put plants there and that's
Right.
going to create some excess nutrients. And but again, it's a learning experience. What did I learn?
Exactly.
Go back to what I know works, uh, and I wouldn't have to be dealing with that stuff. But it's just, do I regret it? I can't say I regret it because I learned something.
Mm-hmm.
I learned that I don't want to do it the way that other people tell me to do it.
Right.
That I should trust what I've been doing over the course of these years and have kind of found what works for me. And that's the
Right.
other thing. It's what works for me.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays I can set up most aquariums that I set up, and that hair algae uh, phase of it, I don't really deal with it because
Right.
I've kind of honed in my version of dirted tanks to fill my needs or the way
Mm-hmm.
I do aquariums. Um, and it hasn't been an issue since. But it's just, again, you got to live and learn.
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
The only
It's
thing.
like
Oh,
it's
sorry.
like it's like the dirt and tank thing is when I first got into it at 7 years old, there wasn't no dirty tanks. There wasn't any of that stuff back then. There was go buy some gravel at the store, at the fish store. Go buy the gravel, put it in the bottom. You have all these multiple colors, pick what you want. Nobody thought about natural stone. Nobody thought about things like that when I was first getting into it as a kid. And today you have all this stuff out there, that you can get, and you go to a pet store, you got to spend a fortune on a little 5 pound bag of gravel. Well, that's not even going to be enough for a 10-gallon tank, But but the dirt method is I kind of like it, but I don't use it 100% the way Father Fish does or anything like that. I found out what works for me is I keep a sponge filter in there, keep the top of the water moving a little bit. It's like nature. Water is always moving, or it's raining. It's creating some sort of oxygen in the water, you know. So I keep that going at least with a sponge filter to allow a little bit of aeration. Plus, like you said, I like the sound to it. It's calming for me. But I think the way nature is and stuff like that, growing up seeing the things that I've seen, things like that, if you have a body of water that gets stagnant, then everything dies off, except your little microbes and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, I gotta dive into more how LRB is doing everything, but he's down in Florida, so he can go out in his backyard and gets his substrate right out of the backyard that he's using.
Yeah,
So
but that's the interesting part because he was in Indiana prior to that, and he was still
mhm,
doing it. I mean,
right,
that his method has not changed. His location might have, but what he's been
right,
doing for, well, that's not necessarily true because now he's entirely biological. Whereas,
right.
yeah, but you know, there's something to be said that you got to play with it to find where that
Hmm.
balance point is for you. And
Right,
he's not one that's opposed to having water agitation at the surface. You got to have that
right,
be able to provide that exchange of oxygen
hmm,
for the gases. So
right,
he'll run on some of his filters, the internal filters, but it's more
mhm,
or the what are those the ones you see on reef tanks, the little blowers, wave makers,
okay, yep,
wave makers to try to create some agitation at the surface.
hmm,
But yeah, it's
you just have to find out what works for you. I mean, like you said, it's all about trying things out and see what's going to work for what you're doing for yourself. Um, I'm not going to go out and spend a bunch of money on a canister filter. I'm not going to go out and spend a bunch of money on all this other stuff when you really don't have to have it to enjoy anything. I mean, I believe in keeping the fish more natural anyway, so that's the reason why I do my tanks the way I do them. But I am going to go back to more than likely doing all my tanks over in the dirt again.
Mm.
Because like I said, I don't like the substrates that I got my hands onto. I found one at a local pet store. It's kind of like a sand that has nutrients in it already, which helps kickstart your tank off. So, and the first time I used it, I put plants in there, and within a week they were already starting to grow. I was blown away with that. I couldn't believe it. And all it is a black sand substrate, but when you open the bag, there's the sand is wet, and you can see, like, when you use Fritz 7,
Mm.
you know how the pink color that's in
Yeah.
the Fritz 7, it was in there. You could actually pour out some of the liquid and look at it, and it's like it's already got some of that bacteria already in the sand. So where it comes from, I have absolutely no clue.
See,
But
I'm always suspicious of those types of soils because
mhm,
what's feeding the beneficial bacteria? I mean,
right,
there's got they must be pouring in like ammonia in there, and
hmm,
to be able to keep the cycle going. That's the only
right,
thing I can think of, because there's got to be a food source for the beneficial bacteria.
hmm,
Um, I've I've found it. Yeah, your first tank is always going to be the hardest tank
hmm, exactly,
because that's the one you got to establish.
hmm,
Once you have one tank, you can have 100 tanks, no problem.
exactly. You
Because
just
what's
you
going to
just
happen is you're going to be able to use that one starter tank as your
right,
jump starter for all your other aquariums.
hmm, yep,
And ever since I got around establishing my very first aquarium, now it's like, and I keep telling people I don't believe in any of those, you know, chemicals that they offer you because you don't need them.
right,
You just got to have the understanding. I know they're a convenience, and I
hmm,
get that. I understand it. And if you want to tell me that you're using it for convenience purposes, that's great. You know, because you're going to do what benefits you. But don't try
right,
to tell me that I have to do it that way.
hmm,
That's where I start pushing back and calling bullshit. You know, it's not
right,
true. I'm not stupid. I wasn't born yesterday.
right,
Miracles
right,
don't come in a bottle,
uh-huh,
especially if you're telling me that that's the solution. You can't explain to me why it's working. If
right,
you can't understand that, how the hell are you plugging that product to me?
hmm,
If you don't even understand what it is you're pouring in your aquarium,
right,
if you can understand and articulate what exactly it is you're doing, okay, I might buy it. You know, but it's just I get tired of so many people trying to I guess use their influence to
hmm,
convince others that that's the only way you can do it or you have to do it that way. I hate the have to. That's
no,
bullshit.
no, you don't have to do nothing. It's like a lot of times I'll take water out of one of my tanks, and I'll if I start a new tank out, take water out of another tank and put it in there. It's already started. Some of the water started. Then you add water to it, and then it starts cycling right away. Um, I use the Fritz 7 because I've read the ingredients in it. I think it's a Kickstarter for the bacteria and everything like that. But all this other stuff, like I use an RV filter, so I don't do no complete. I don't do any to get rid of the
Mhm.
chlorine or anything like that. Because in my area up here in New York, there's no chloramine or anything in the water, so I got an RV filter and I use that. I don't put the dechlorinator in there. I don't like it. I don't know what it does to react to the chlorine like that. I'm not a chemist, so it gets rid of it. But
Well,
that, but then I see people. I just read on one of the pages I'm on Facebook with. People are pouring ammonia in their tanks. I'm like,
Well,
But
are they jump starting their aquariums? Is that what they're doing with the ammonia? Because that's originally how you used to cycle an aquarium.
I don't know. And
Well,
never,
as a matter of fact, as a
we
matter of
never
fact,
did that when I was a kid.
yeah. As a matter of fact, there's even I didn't understand why Aquafunk would always say don't pee in your tanks, but that actually used to be a way they used to start aquariums. You know,
Right.
that would help jumpstart some of the cycles. But I didn't know where that was coming from until
Hmm.
the other day. I don't know. I found it through. I was listening to a podcast of all things, and that's what they were talking about. You know, there used to
Right.
be a time where people would. I think it was even with saltwater tanks with the most. If I'm not mistaken, I was like, what the hell? But you know, going back to using the products, I rather pull a dirty sponge filter,
Hmm.
squeeze that into a tank that I'm trying to start up,
Yep.
and then going to buy something. Well, look, honestly, I don't. My store, I only have one store here in my small town,
Hmm.
and it's a PetSmart, and they don't
Right.
carry. I don't even know if they carry any Fritz products. To be honest, I'm trying to think that I don't know, maybe the complete if as a dechlorinator, but even with
Uh,
dechlorinators, if you do a little bit of research, you'll find out that on Amazon, eBay, or whatever, you can buy the actual product. It's like crystals, and I don't know the
uh,
name of it. I know it's somebody will put it on here. I think it's like DM or something. Um, but it's just basically you dissolve them in water, and that's chlorinator. That's your
hmm.
dechlorinator. That's all dechlorinator is. And you can buy like a 1 pound bag that will treat thousands of gallons. And you
Right.
probably with that 1 pound bag, you it would be years before you have to buy more dechlorinator. But
Right.
I went the route the route that you went was with the RV filter, the
Hmm.
inline RV filter for my
Right.
water changes. And once I went to
Right.
that, I didn't need decchlorinators anymore. But
Right.
the caveat is I know our water system here only uses chlorine. They don't use
Right.
chloramines to treat their water.
Right.
So even the whole thing with that inline RV filter was a convenience because I
Right.
don't have to wait and put water with the water stone, I mean with an air stone and let it gas off.
Hmm.
It
Right.
allows me to instantly be able to open the tap and refill my aquariums. It's a
Right.
convenience.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. True. I agree. And that's what I like about it. I mean, it's for me. Sometimes I'll start setting up tanks like that, and um, having the RV filter, I don't have to worry about any of the chemicals. I try not to add anything to my tanks other than that bacteria booster. And I found out that using it, especially I had an algae bloom in one of my tanks, and there was a lot of evaporation because I don't do water changes. I top off from evaporation and stuff like that, and my tanks are thriving. And when I had the bloom, I added a little bit of Fritz 7 into it, and 3 days later, everything was starting to clear up again, you know? So it helped to get rid of that problem. Um, Other than that, like you said, I use a filter out of another tank. I use some water from another tank and stuff like that. But other than that, like I said, I don't do any water change or anything like that. I top off from evaporation.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, it's just it's crazy because when I started saying that I've used um, YouTube as a source of of learning stuff. You know,
Hmm.
that's what I've when I started getting in here. My biggest things were learning how to do stuff,
Right.
and that whole thing with the dechlorinator stuff, I
Hmm.
found out through another content creator, and I've learned so much from him from doing DIY projects, which is Joey. And
Right.
as a matter of fact, when my sump that I got built back here was
Hmm.
watching one of his videos how he constructed out of plastic a dresser and was
Okay.
able to do that. And I think
Hmm.
he was also one of the people that I found that was talking about that sodium. What is it? Sodium thiosphate or something like that, which is basically dechlorinator.
Right. Right.
But now here's the thing, though. I think with that one, it won't remove chloramines. So if
Right.
you're in a situation where chlorine is basically the product you're using to clean your water,
Hmm.
then you don't. It's. I think that's really what safe is. It's just
Right.
grounded up crystals from that stuff.
Hmm.
And but you're not going to know that unless you really start looking into these things and you start
Right.
researching. And it's just. But you gotta. I don't know. I think you have to have that ability to be willing to learn,
Right.
to go out there and like what you did, just basically looking at the side label and reading what the ingredients are,
Hmm.
and then figuring out, okay,
Right.
I get it. I understand what it is that I'm putting in there. But
Hmm.
you know, but we've kind of gone off the rails there a little bit. I want to go back to you. And and the thing is, I want to I might be mistaken, but from what I am perceiving from your videos, you're prepping yourself to start a business. Is that
Correct.
correct? Okay.
Yes, I am. My long-term goal is to actually open up a fish store. I do want to work out of my house. Until then, selling fish online. Um, I seen with Aquafunk there, he's part of Consolidated Fish Farms. So I did reach out to him, and I'll get back to him. Last weekend was kind of like a blur. I was at a Marine Corps reunion, so a lot of drinking and shooting going on there. But my long-term goal is to open up a fish store because here in my area, I'm in central New York. That we have Syracuse, we have Albany. I'm stuck in between the two of them. And there's a couple of fish stores here. One fish store I walked into about a year ago. I walked in, looked at the tanks, turned around, walked right back out again.
It's interesting that you say that because when I was younger,
Uh huh.
there was a lot more stores that were like that.
Mhm.
Not so much today. I am really surprised how much fish stores have evolved from when I remember in the late 80s, early 90s
Mhm.
to what fish stores are becoming today. And
Mhm.
one of the biggest things that just stands out to me is there was a very distinctive smell that
All
you
right.
would get from the older fish stores.
Mhm.
And it was like mildew maybe, or just, stale water. I don't know what it was.
Right.
But all the older fish stores that I remember had that same similar aroma to them.
Mhm.
Nowadays, you walk in and it doesn't smell like anything. You
Right.
wouldn't know if you walk in with your eyes closed, you wouldn't know you're in a fish store.
Mhm.
Which I don't know how much of that is because the way we're keeping tanks has evolved.
Right.
I just don't know what it is, but I don't know if maintenance routines have changed. I don't know if it's the advent of all these automatic water changer systems that a lot of these stores are using. I don't know what it is, but I do notice that it's not the same fish stores that I remember because
Right.
I don't know. It's crazy. And I've been to quite a bit of stores nowadays, especially with doing videos.
Mhm.
When I go to I live in a small town, and
Right.
big cities for me would be like Phoenix, which I got to drive 3.5 hours to get there, or I can go to
Okay.
San Diego, which is another 3.5 hour drive,
Right.
or I can go up towards the LA area, which is another 4.5 hour drive.
Right. Right.
And to be able to go and find local fish stores.
Mhm.
And so whenever we travel for whatever, one of the points that I always try to do is go check out a store in that area.
Right.
And that's how I've been able to get to several fish stores. And it's really because I'm doing the content. If it wasn't for the content,
Mhm.
I probably wouldn't go out of my way to try to find these places. But it seems like in 99% of the times that I've been to these stores, they're nothing what I remember them being when I was growing up as a young man. And
Well, when I first started, when I was a kid, 7 years old, the place we got our fish from was in a small town, and it was in the guy's basement. He ran a fish business right out of the basement of his house. But today, with all the zoning and all this other crap, you can't hardly do anything out of the basement of your house anymore.
Not
But
legally.
but the fish store I went into a year ago, I walked in there and the place was probably one of the nastiest places I've ever been into, and the appearance of it wasn't what I liked. And of course, I have a PetSmart here, but back in the day, back when I was even when I got home from the service and stuff like that, this area that I'm in was booming. We had Griffiths Air Force Base. All the industry was going on, so there was a lot of different fish stores and stuff like that in the area. Now there's only like three in this area, and the majority of and one of the fish store I have is about an hour away from me. If I want to go to Albany, that's 2.5 hours away from me. Syracuse, that's an hour and 15, an hour 20 minutes away from me. There's nothing here local really that's close, and just seeing that and getting back into it. And when I first got back into it, my whole intentions were to open a fish store, um, and it'll happen. It's going to happen probably within next year. I hope to actually have the fish store up and running. But until then, I'm breeding my fish, and I'm setting up a website right now, trying to figure that out. I'm old. Sometimes teaching an old dog new tricks is trying. It's kind of slow, but I'm trying to figure out, setting up the website and things like that. So it's all learning. So it takes time. It's not going to happen overnight.
So, are you going to be strictly an online business?
I Up until I get my fish store, yes.
Okay.
I'm gonna do an online, and probably when I open a fish store, I'll still do the online stuff because once you start something, if you end it, that's not fair to everybody else out there that's depending on you. You know, so I'll probably have both going on at the same time. I don't want to get as big as Dan's Fish. I don't want to get as big as all these other people. I just want to stay small little business, and live comfortably off of it. And I have enough knowledge and I have the will to succeed, and I will succeed.
Is it? Do you find that there's a necessity for a local fish store in your area? Is there a lot
Yes.
of hobbyists?
There are a lot of hobbyists in this area because every time you get on the street, people got tanks going on. You got people looking for fish tanks. You got people looking for smaller fish. You got people looking for everything. One of our local fish clubs that's in the area, I'm not part of it. I haven't joined anything like that because it's out in Syracuse. It to where they have their meetings and stuff is an hour and a half away from me. And by the time I get off of work in the daytime and try to make it something like that, my day starts at 4:30, 5 o'clock every day. So to try to make it that far and then come home and then try to get some sleep to go into work, it's just not feasible. There's nothing central. There's nothing here.
Yeah, no, it's. I've always I've always been of the opinion that if you're going to try to run a business in this hobby,
Hmm.
you'd be a fool not to take advantage of what YouTube is giving you, which is
Correct.
basically a way to promote free advertisement.
Hmm.
I mean, I remember growing up being able to buy advertisement for any kind of business. That's the way you did it, and it was expensive.
Right.
I think one of the biggest benefits for entrepreneurs nowadays is having the access to social media
Correct.
and be able to promote it.
Hmm.
And it's just that's the only way that I'm gonna see a business have any success is being able to get that advertisement out. And it's to not use this as a tool
Correct.
would be crazy. Why
Hmm.
not? It's out there. It's people are watching what you're doing. I think
Exactly.
what's so unique about small businesses, especially in this niche, is that you have that ability to present to people what it is you're doing
Right.
so they can see what quality they're buying. And I think that's
Hmm.
very important. I think I think that a lot of the businesses that are running out there really need to be taking advantage of this tool
Hmm.
to show what it is the quality. I It's funny because one of the guys that's here, Jeff, his channel is solely to do that because he sells his fish wholesale to some of the local stores there, and the best way to do it is for him to show them what they look like in his aquarium, the whole
Hmm.
process. It's kind of like he's inventorying his, he's cataloging his inventory and sending it out to his prospective consumers.
Right.
And I just think that's brilliant because it, before where you would just send a list of names of products, you
Hmm.
didn't know what that product was going to look like. Now
Right.
you have that opportunity to step up your sales and go, look, these are the fish. This is what they look like.
Right.
This is how I've been treating them. This is how they're
Hmm.
interacting. This is what you're going to get.
Right.
And so it's just it blows my mind that people that want to start a business, and especially the fish business, which is so competitive to begin with,
Hmm.
to not be taking advantage of the resources that are out there and using them to the max.
Exactly. And like with mine, I mean, probably by the end of summer is when I'm actually going to probably start selling fish and stuff like that. From what I have here from the breeding and things, because got the stock, I'm starting to build it up, and I got just put some fish outside today. Did a small video on that out my outdoor ponds. Put two different kinds of guppies outside. So it takes a while to build up a stock and to get a line going and get that line going pretty good. I don't want to sell junk. I don't want to sell, something that doesn't look good. I'm not going to do that to somebody. So it takes time to, especially when you start out with a trio or two trios or something like that, it takes time to get the babies, raise them up, and have more babies. It takes time to build up your stock before you can actually start selling. And then you got to thin it. You got to call things out as well. It's like I bought a trio of guppies online at one of the bigger online people, and it was sold to me as a certain color. Well, I'm finding out that they're not. The babies aren't coming out what was sold to me.
Mm.
So now I got to figure out, what happened. Why are they not coming out the way the fish were sold to me? So I had, I think I got four males that came out, but I have 30 males that end up having a different color tail. That's not even in that line of what was sold to me, you know. But then I have another one that I got off of Michael's Fish Room. Okay, he sold me some half black red rose. I I picked them out because it's like kind of like the red rose thing on it, and they're breeding true.
Well,
I've already go ahead.
no, I was going to say that's also where if you're not a person of integrity,
Hmm.
this media will also devour you because
Exactly.
here's the thing, and this is what I love about it because it's gonna where it used to be, if it wasn't for the social media before, you would have had that experience and nobody would have known about it,
Correct.
and you would have thought you were the only one dealing with that. Now
Hmm.
you share that information on social media like this, and before you know it, you have somebody else that goes, "Oh, wait a minute, I had the same thing happen to me," and quickly that gets out, and it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, you know what, that site is not reliable because although they're advertising it as this, that's not
Right.
necessarily what you're getting. Now there's a big thing too though, if they're selling it to you as an established line, then there's
Hmm.
certain requirements that are expected with an established
Right.
line. There's a percentage that you're supposed to be able to replicate with
Correct.
that species, or
Hmm.
that, not species, but that line.
Right.
Now, if they were to said, look, these are from this genetic, well, then that's a different story. But the pricing
Right.
should also reflect that, and you're taking that gamble because then from that could be something that you could work on and continue to call to finally establish your line.
Right.
Now that's where I think it's dirty. If they're trying to sell you something as an established line,
Right.
uh, while knowing that it's not meeting the requirements of what is considered an established line, then shame on you, and rightly
Hmm.
so. You should be called out for that.
Right. Like the half black red rose, I've had them for about 3 months now, and within about a week and a half, you can already start seeing them. They're lining out like they're supposed to be. You know, I have one of them that I got off of one of the big online people. It was called the Israeli Blue.
Mm.
Okay, and the Israeli Blue, I like the color pattern on it, the tail, what the finnage on it, and stuff like that. But when I first got it, within a week I had 30 babies. So I'm like, okay, let's see how these things how they actually come out when as they get older. And now they have red, and the bodies on them look like they're part of an Endler gene. It has that fluorescent or neon blue color in them. Okay, so I don't know if they were crossed with an Endler or what they were, but they were sold as Israeli Blue. Um, so I'm kind of wondering what's going to happen with it if somehow to get that line they had to breed a red-tailed guppy in with it. I don't know, because it's really odd that the fins on it should have been yellow and blue with black spots, but I'm getting almost like a crimson red
Mm.
with black dots in it. Good looking fish. I'm gonna actually pull some out. I'm actually gonna try to run with that line and see how it'll actually breed true out of that line, because it's a really nice. It's red, blue. It kind of reminds me almost like a flag. The colors that's coming out of it. Um, and I'm gonna pull the other ones and see what happens if I can get that line to start breeding true. I mean, it takes time to do all that. And if somebody thinks that they're going to go out there and buy something, and once you have a problem, you got to try to get back that line. You got to start breeding that line out true again. And that's what I have with this one. And the guppies weren't cheap either.
See, that's the problem, though. That's
you
and
know,
I I just think if people would be more upfront about, they could have simply said, "Look, that's a line
Mhm.
that's only breeding 50%. You know,
Right,
it's not. That's about as established they've been able to get it. But if they give you that information when you're going into it, you know what the expectations are, and you're not going to be as like upset if you were sold under the false pretense that it was a straight line. I mean, that's,
right,
even if they were as expensive as they were, because maybe it's a hard line to straighten because you're
right.
using different species of fish to try
Mhm.
to create that line. But it's just I don't understand why people can't be honest.
Right,
That's just it. I just feel there's a lot more to be accomplished if you're just honest with people, and
right.
and you allow that people to make that decision based on the
Mhm.
information you're giving them.
Right.
You're going to have much better results. You
Mhm.
know, I don't get it. I don't get it why people have to be, and then especially in this hobby, which although it seems big, it really is sort of niche.
Mhm.
So people are going to find out, when you're doing stuff that is not on the up and up.
Right.
It, that news travels much quicker than all the attaboys you could ever receive.
Yep. People
You you
people
can
show people show their true colors down the line. They really do it, and a lot of times it don't take long either. To see the bullshit out front. And that's one thing I stress on when I talk to people in some of the videos that I've had. I'm not going to sit there sugarcoat anything. I'm not going to do that, and I'm going to tell you like it is. If you like it, like it. If you don't, you don't. I really don't care. But that's me. I'm not going to lie to people. I'm going to tell them just the way it is, and be transparent about what I'm doing. If I know something that's not true, is I'm going to tell you it's not true. I don't know if that's part of the Marine Corps DNA or what it is. I don't know.
I don't think it's
It
necessarily about the military aspect. I think it's just being a decent human being,
yeah.
and having values that
Hmm.
that you stand by. And
Right.
integrity is one of those values that a lot of people seem to have lost within
Hmm.
recent years. And I don't know why. I don't know why, because it's, you know, I just don't get it. I don't get it. I don't see why people have to try to lie to get ahead, because
Right.
they never succeed. That's the thing, though. If you pay attention to things, people that are always trying to be deceitful never get ahead. Never
Right.
get ahead.
Yeah, and I just like being honest. I was raised that way. I remember as a kid, my father always telling me, if you lie one time, then you got to make up a lie, then you got to make up a lie, and you got to make up a lie, and it'll come down to you can't keep up with the lies. So it's a lot easier being honest because my memory's not that good anyway. So
And it doesn't improve the older we get either.
sometimes I can't find my own keys when I set them right down in front of me.
Or worse, you have them in your hand.
You know,
You have them in your hand, you're running around. Where did I put those keys?
you're not supposed to tell people that. No,
Yeah, no.
I just want to be honest and upfront with everybody. Everything is, for me, when I got back into it this time, I was on a budget, and things work slowly. Things will get there. I mean, it's not going to happen overnight. I knew that getting into it. But everything that I'm doing so far is starting to work out. It's like um, Aquafun, him being on your channel that day, getting that connection. And that's what it's all about. I mean, it's getting a group of people together, and you start, what do they call it, networking now.
Yes.
Everybody gets together and we network, and we work together as a team, and that's going to be part of my success is having
Well,
that network.
yeah, and I think that's why being on here,
Hmm.
and I don't mean with me, I mean just being on social media
Right.
is going to allow you to make that network. I don't know how many people I've been very fortunate to get to meet by doing this, that under
Hmm.
any other circumstances I would have probably ever crossed paths with them. And it's so true, because by getting involved with sharing my experiences on YouTube, I've been able to network with tons of people that I've reached, um, businesses. I've reached other fellow hobbyists,
Hmm.
and you start rebuilding that network of, because you might have something that I want to sell and I can't get access to, where I might have that, and all of a sudden it's like, hey Bill, I got a bunch of these. I'll send you some of those if you send me some of what you got. And now
Right.
you're able to spread those fish or those products, whatever it is you
Hmm.
got, and be able to share it with different peoples of different parts of the country. You're on the far east coast as you can get,
Right.
and I'm almost right on the ocean. Over here
Hmm.
I'm in Arizona, but I'm in the western side of Arizona, basically in California. And so all of a sudden, we've been able to establish a relationship across the country where
Hmm.
we can network, we can trade stuff, we can sell
Right.
each other stuff, or whatever it is.
Hmm.
And I just think it's very very nice to be able to have that. And
Right.
you know, especially if you're trying to establish a business. I've been very fortunate, because one of the things that I like to do is I kind of like putting people together.
Hmm.
I've had so many friends that are trying to do stuff, and for some weird reason, I happen to know somebody that can help them out, or they can reciprocate each other and be able to benefit out of
Right.
that relationship.
Hmm.
And that's the part that I really enjoy doing, is when it comes to network, is kind of like, somebody will be like, oh, I wonder who, you know what? I think I know somebody. And, I can put one and two together. And,
Right.
sometimes it works, sometimes, it doesn't, but at least it's a way to be able to get people to network a little bit more.
Hmm.
And that's, well, like having Funk on, like you said, and all of a sudden he's talking about what he's doing. And here
Right.
you are, and you're able to make that connection. Just so
Right.
happens that I know Funk, and I was able to put you guys in touch,
Right.
so,
Right.
but that's I've always done that, and not just in this hobby. I think I've always done it throughout my life.
Hmm.
Whether it's business or a lot of it is just it's always been usually business related because I just associated with so many different people that
Right.
there's somebody that I'm bound to know. I got friends that are AC techs. I got friends that are mechanics. I got friends that are carpenters,
Hmm.
construction, all this other stuff. And if somebody's looking for something, I was like, oh, and a lot of the times there are people that I I let them associate with me because I believe in their integrity.
Right.
So, and it's kind of like I don't have a problem with making that recommendation is because I've gotten to to the point where I would be willing to do business with them.
Hmm.
And I know how what's the word I'm looking for? How critical, not critical, but what I'm looking for, what kind of quality I'm looking for.
Right.
And I'm pretty demanding when it comes to that stuff. So
Hmm.
if I'm satisfied, I'm pretty sure just about anybody else would be satisfied with dealing with them. So
Right. 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 I'm kind of the same way. When I got out of the service, I bounced around for a while. I went from state to state and stuff like that. Then I started driving truck. So I drove truck for 10 years. So I've been all the way across the United States and stuff like that. But now I'm at a point in my lifetime where I'm settled, and I've always wanted to do something like this. Um, Even since I was a kid, I've always been fascinated with fish. I don't know why. I keep getting drawn back into it again. It's like a magnet. It keeps sucking me back. But um, and the basis for what I'm doing is the nano fishes because I like watching them. I like when they start school and when guppies start messing with each other. It just for me it's just I enjoy it. And with my business, I want to be able to take what I've done over the years for 50 something years, and help other people. And I know I can succeed at it. There's nothing in my lifetime that I've actually failed at. I've actually succeeded in everything I always tried to do. And this I'm setting up now is going to be my retirement, you know,
mm.
um, and maybe pass along with somebody else. Who knows? Um, we'll cross that bridge if that ever comes. But I enjoy it. Like you said, the social media thing. We didn't have this when I was growing up. Um, I remember when the computer first started. I was part of the age where it was dial up, and you had to wait 20
Hey,
minutes for it to get connected to the internet. And there was really nothing out there anyway. I can't even remember the dial up that I used to have, but now it is like you said it the way it is today. You can get out there, you can learn, you can get yourself out there with YouTube. I haven't done Instagram. I can't seem to figure out the Instagram thing, and I don't know if I'm gonna connect it with Facebook or not. My business I will with Facebook, but I can't figure out the Instagram thing. Maybe I'm too old.
no, it's not as complicated. I thought I was going to be too old to do it, but now you can find me on Instagram, TikTok.
uh
But there's just every time, believe it or not, I'm even on Rumble, even though I haven't done much there. There's just so many new platforms that are coming up. But
hmm
but I think the big three that that you could benefit from being on are YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Although
Okay.
TikTok, I don't know how much longer it's going to be around,
Right.
but and it's very interesting because you would think, being that we're all hobbyists, we would all kind of cross pollinate across all the different platforms, but it's like each one of those platforms has its own unique groups of people. So
hmm
if you're not taking advantage of that, those are potential customers you're not going to reach.
Right. Right. And
And
when I first got into YouTube, I was just I use my cell phone. Cell phone, the camera on the cell phone is much better than anything that you could ever even imagine. That's what I do all my videos with, is with my phone. Um, and I don't even know where the hell I was going to see. This is sometimes disease. Sometimes you get in a conversation, you forget where you're going. But uh, I can't think about where I was going with that. That's pretty bad, isn't it?
Nah, it's all right. Yeah, no, it's and I saw a comment here that said that unfortunately Facebook killed off most of the sales and stuff like that. But here's the thing: it doesn't necessarily mean to promote your business. You don't have to advertise pricing because
Mm-hmm.
that's like a big no no on some of these platforms.
Right.
Oh, you can't sell
Right.
this, but that doesn't mean you can't post images or videos of
Right.
the stuff, your inventory that you're keeping.
Right.
And for if you're interested in it, you can always put a contact me on whatever, for
Right.
more information.
Mm-hmm.
And but it's still a way to be able to advertise. And
Right.
if any business wants to succeed, you got to be able to get out there and have exposure.
Mm-hmm.
But you also have to establish a good there's no better advertisement than word of mouth advertisement.
Right.
But then again, that really becomes to your integrity and what you stand
Mm-hmm.
behind your business.
Right.
The problem with that sometimes though is there's a lot of shady people out there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of shady people out there, and people are always going to try to get one over on you,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll try to bring you down on what you're doing just because they didn't feel that they got the outcome they were wanting. And
Right.
so, but it really doesn't have anything to do with who you are as a business. So that's the only
Right.
downside to it, that there is that side that you got to deal with. And I know that
Mm-hmm.
because I have friends that are running businesses like KJE Aquatics, and that's some of the things that I know he's got to deal with. Is people will have an experience that they felt was inadequate for whatever reason, and then they'll
Mm-hmm.
just turn around and try to trash whatever
Right.
reputation they have done. But I think what it would the only way you can get past that is by having established yourself as a reputable business,
Mm-hmm.
and people will be able to decipher um, who you really are
Mm-hmm.
based on what you've done over the course
Right.
of whatever years you've been on. So
Right.
yeah,
Right.
it boils down to, again, integrity is just everything.
Mm-hmm.
For business, for life, for success,
Right.
you have to be somebody who has integrity.
Right. And a lot of times, and what I've noticed is, I bought some stuff off of eBay, and like you said, there's some shady people out there and things like that. Um, I've gotten stuff. Well, recently I bought some fish, and I have a video on it. Um, Reached out to the company I bought the fish from, and they never got back to me. And it's a very very big online fish business.
Yeah.
They never got back to me, and I'll never buy another thing from them again. And I'll one person knows 20 people, 20 people know 20 more people. So the whole thing can blow up big. And I don't like to do that to people, but it was a simple thing that I had a shipment that was delayed. That was not my fault, wasn't their fault, wasn't nobody's fault or anything like that. But it was a different color shrimp, and shrimp should have survived. Even I had shrimp in the mail for 7 days. They came here and they were alive. My rice fish were in the mail for 10 days. They came here alive. I got these shrimp, and you know I had a few dead, and then half of them ended up dying on me. Okay. And I tried to reach out. Well, I know the shipping wasn't your fault, wasn't my fault or anything like that, but this is what happened, and never heard a thing from them.
Hmm.
So that's their reputation there that they're putting on the line. Because all it takes is one customer to badmouth somebody, and that, like I said, that person knows 20 people, and it could just snowball. I was in retail for a long time, so I know how that concept works. And it only takes one person to do something to badmouth you, and then everybody's starting to wonder. And like I said, I got some stuff off of eBay one time, got the fish. 3 days later, they're dead. Parameters in my tank, everything's perfect. You know what was going on? I have no idea. I still can't figure out what happened to this day. Just chalk it up to experience is all it is.
I'm reading Eduardo's comment on there. Yeah, but even then, though, sometimes I think this is where, see, those experiences is the stuff that I take into consideration because, like you said, your parameters would have been spot on for you.
Right.
But maybe the seller failed to tell you what his parameters were.
Right.
Maybe they weren't compatible. Even though the fish, maybe you could have gotten, knowing that your guys' water parameters were very different, you would have taken a different approach as to how you would introduce those fish.
Right.
You know, there's just a lot of, but those are things that you as a consumer can learn from that and go, okay, I couldn't figure, it wasn't water quality, it wasn't genetics, or it wasn't this and that. Well, maybe the parameters are different. So you make a note of that when you start up your business. That's information that you can share to the consumer and go, look, this is what these guys are accustomed to.
Right.
If your water parameters are very different than this, the possibilities of them not being successful are increased unless you do A, B, C, or D. You know, it's just, but again, this is where I've always said there's always something to be learned, whether it's good or bad.
Exactly.
Even from a bad experience, I've learned so much more from bad experiences than the good experiences.
Right.
Because when something bad happens, you always want to go back and try to figure out what the hell, what was it? You know, why did I fail? Why did I fail? And you get hung up on that to the point where even now it still bothers you that happened. You know, you're kind of like, well, shit. You know I did my end was right.
Right.
What else could it have been?
And I'm the type of person that when stuff like that happens, I don't sleep. I stay awake and I keep thinking about it, and thinking about it, and thinking about it, and thinking about what I do, you know. And it do you go back and try to do something? I mean, I had an experience with one of the online sellers on a shipment. UPS did a screw up, okay, and they repacked the fish, and I got them here, and half of them were dead. Well, I immediately got on the phone. When I got on the phone with the online salespeople, they said, we were waiting for your phone call because the box that you got at your door was not the box that we shipped them in. And they were very accommodating. I mean, I still have half the fish from the first order, and they sent me a whole brand new order on top of it. That's customer service right there. And it's unbelievable, that experience. And I remember that experience, but I also remember bad experiences I've had with other companies. It's you always want to focus on the good experiences, but you also got to figure out the bad experiences and what to do and what not to do. You know, it's like acclimating. If there's a drip acclimation, there's a put the bag in the water, let it acclimate to your water temperatures. You can do it both ways. Certain type of fish, you have to drip acclimate them. You know, it's all trial and error. You got to figure out what works for you.
Well, and here's the thing with that too. A lot of the times we are not willing to assume responsibility. And I mean we as in humanity.
Right.
Because I don't know how many times I've seen people where they buy from a certain company, and the reason they do this is because they're trying to hedge their failure rate, and they'll give them an instruction of how to go about treating these fish, and you see them go and fling it, and they go, "Oh, I do plop and drop."
Right.
Okay, that's fine, but don't be complaining if you did your plop and drop and you killed off half of that purchase.
Right.
You got to be able to assume that responsibility on your end. You try to do something against what they were trying to explain to you how to do it, and because you felt confident, then that's on you. That's not the vendor. That's not the vendor's fault.
Yep.
But the problem is a lot of people won't accept that. even though it's their fault, their
Hmm.
negligence on their end. And I'm seeing this as saying this from a business point of view that they've
Right.
got to deal with. Is kind of like, you know, it's like, wow, what do you want me to do? I mean, we told you what you needed to do to have a higher rate of success.
Hmm.
You discarded that. You didn't ignored it. You went with whatever it is you wanted to do, and now you failed. And how is that my fault? And those are
Right.
some of the things that you're gonna have to deal with when you become a business. It's kind of like,
Hmm.
shit, because some people can be real shady. I mean, some
Hmm.
people just want something for free, you know.
Oh, I know. I know. I see that a lot, and like you said, that goes back to the people themselves, integrity, and things like that. And I worked in retail for a while, and I trust me, I've seen a lot of shady people. You'd be amazed, and it would be from people that you wouldn't imagine it would be from those type of people, you know,
Yeah.
and that's what gets you. And I've had in the past, when I got back into it after being in the military, and when I first got disabled, and this is all before YouTube and everything else, and I'm trying to figure everything back out again. I bought a tank, went home, set it up, let it run for about a week and a half, and now I want to go out and I want to buy 50 fish and put it in the tank. No, 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 no. You don't do that. You got to build things up slowly, But I was headstrong and I just wanted to see a whole tank full of fish. Well, you got to slow down a little bit. Put the brakes on, go a little bit slower than that, and that's what I learned over the years. And like you said, you learn by your mistakes. If you don't learn by your mistakes, then there's something wrong. You know, every little thing that happens wrong, learn from it. Don't duplicate it. So you do something wrong again. You know,
Yeah.
and that's what I found out with doing what I'm doing now. Starting up about a year ago, I started out slow. You know, put in a few fish. They have babies. The babies that are born in that water now they're used to that type of water. And I guess with the years of experience, I know how to set up a tank and get fish into them and get them running really, really quick. You know, where a lot of people don't have that, and that's why I like the YouTube thing. I could share my experiences with people.
Yeah. Let's get a little bit into what you're, because I know the name says nano fish,
Hmm.
but is nano fish encompasses a large, um, cross section of the hobby.
Correct.
Is there any specific species that you want to try to specialize in, or you're just going to try to keep as many? What is it that you're trying to do with the business?
I'm specializing a lot in live bears. I'm ventured out in some egg layers years ago, and I'm trying some rice fish right now. And right now, I'm really starting to have some success with it. I got my first baby. I got back from my Marine Corps reunion, and I've got a baby rice fish. So I want to keep to the real smaller nano fish. I don't want to get into like dwarfs and things like that. Like I found that one live bear that has one baby a day. Um, I've never seen it before, and I bought some. Let's see where it goes from that. But I like my guppies. I really like my guppies. I don't know why. It's from 7 years old. I like the guppy thing. I like the colors. I like how they move through the tank. I just like what they do. And I've got some leery tail mollies. Something a color I've never seen before. I have some blue platies. Well, they sold to me as blue platies, but back in the day, back years ago, they called them Mickey Mouse platies. You
Oh,
know,
okay.
so I got some of those too, and they just started having babies. Because a lot of times when you get fish out there, um, whether it be egg layers, live bears, or anything like that, you're not going to get a fully mature fish all the time. It's going to take time for them to start having babies, start laying eggs and stuff like that. Like I've had the rice fish for about 3 months now, and they're just now starting to scatter the eggs. I put some mops in there and stuff like that, and I just took the mops out today, and I looked at two mops I had in with the rice fish, and there's got to be at least 100 eggs on them. But I let them set for 10 days. You know, by the time I got down to reunion, got back, and actually pulled them out, there's a ton of eggs in there. So I've actually taken those. I took them out, put some other mops back in there again, because I tried to pick the eggs off the mop, and when you put them in the water and stuff like that. Anyway, so when I went to put the eggs in the water and stuff like that, they started grouping together. They started clumping together. So you have to get down in there, and I'm half blind anyway. I can't see 2 feet in front of my face. So you're trying to sit there and separate all the eggs. So I learned by a mistake. I picked them off. They got clumped up. Now I'm just taking the mop, and I'm going to put the mop in the water, see how that works out for that. But I want to specialize, you know, live bearers, but I also want to do smaller egg scatterers too. Um, I've never ventured in that before, so that's what I'm venturing in now. These rice fish, I searched and searched and searched and searched, went into a few stores and things like that, and everybody has the same thing. And I want something different. I want something that's not out there. So I found an online retailer and bought the fish, and I'm none of them died yet. I bought 15 of them, and I haven't lost one yet.
Mm.
So, been pretty lucky there.
Yeah, you'll find out that the more you interact with the community, you'll find out some really cool stuff people are keeping,
Hmm.
and and it just gets to. I've been able to experience a little bit of that where I've been able to source stuff from other hobbyists and vice versa. You know, it's just kind of like
Right.
and it's stuff you'll probably won't come across, you know, at a regular fish store, like
Hmm.
Skull Aquatics. If you ever decide to get into some of the Gadaeids,
Hmm.
that's your guy right there, man. He's got a
Okay.
bunch of different species of Gadaeids,
Uh-huh.
and you know, and those are really cool fish too. But that's one thing that I've always, when people ask, "What's your favorite fish?" I don't know yet. Probably haven't come across my favorite fish yet because there's so many. I can tell you what my favorite fish was yesterday, probably today, and
Uh-huh.
maybe, you know, a few days back. But mine are always changing because I'm
Uh-huh.
always discovering new species of fish. Sometimes it's even like one of my favorite uh, fish that I really like. It is a simple platy, but
Uh-huh.
I've seen two types that I really like, and I know Stephen P has got one of them, which are the blue corals, which
Uh-huh.
is I love those platies because of the way the coloration is, and then they have that spangling of different colors on the little dots.
Okay.
And within that same species, there's, and I don't know what that color variation is, but they're like orange with like tiger stripes on them, and
Okay.
uh, and I've always thought those were really cool. And people buy them like at a PetSmart or a
Hmm.
Petco, but I can't find them in mine.
Right.
And you know, and it's, you would think it's a platy, but yeah, it's that.
Hmm.
It's not necessarily it's the type of fish. Sometimes it's just the coloration of a certain fish, and you know, and I find those fascinating. You know, and
Right.
a lot of people think, oh, you know, those are just regular old platies, but I don't know. I
Hmm.
don't care. That's what I like.
Right.
It's what I
And
enjoy.
and, and right now I'm looking for a very good reputable place. I want to get two different color guppies, and I want to cross them up and see what I can develop out of that. Do come up with something different. Okay. So I'm going to be playing around with that as well. But I don't know. Every time I get back into fish, I'm always drawn back to guppies, and I don't know why.
All
It's
right.
it's
So
just, it's
so
just
it's
it's
safe to
just
say
something I
that
like.
so it's safe to say right now, as current things are, guppies are probably going to be a good quantity of the fish that you'll be
Correct.
supplying.
Yes. Yep. Yep. Like I got the half black red rose. Those are coming out true. I got one that's called a neon sword. And I was kind of wondering because they had the Endler gene in them. I was kind of wondering if they would actually come out true, being the Endler gene, and they are actually coming out that it's a guppy with a swordtail on it. Never seen that back in the day when I was growing up and things like that. But it actually has a sword like a swordtail coming out of it. And they are actually breeding true. I'm actually impressed with that.
Ooh,
And
this looks interesting. A blue platy with a red leer swordtail on it.
wow.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, it's just it's you could stay with the just the libraries. You don't even have to
Uh-huh.
really deal with anything else because there's so many new strains that are coming out
Hmm.
because people are willing to experiment and say, "Hey, well, I
Right.
like this one and I like this one. What happens if I cross these two and let's see what we get."
Right.
I think some of the coolest aquariums are the fancy guppies that are just like coals,
Hmm.
where you just
Yep.
start, if you start culling, you get some. Obviously, you can't replicate a lot of those colors a lot of the
Right.
times, but you get some of the most interesting genetic mutations in them.
Yep.
And I had for a while there, and I tried breeding them, but I guess they must be sterile. There was some that were coming out. It was kind of like the body appeared to be white because the iridescence show like
Hmm.
white. The tail
Right.
was black with like a red outline on them. I thought it
Okay.
was the coolest looking platy, but they came out of my coal tank, and I
Uh-huh.
started separating some of the males, but
Uh-huh.
they weren't reproducing with the females. So I guess that particular genetic strain is sterile because
Hmm.
I tried putting in like juvenile females. I tried everything, even with established females, and they never gave me any fry that resembled that.
Uh-huh.
So my assumption was those guys just can't reproduce. It was just one of those rarities that are, that just happened, genetic that was put out there, but it can't be replicated. Kind of like mules, but you can
Right.
replicate mules.
Like I got these like I said, I like my guppies, but I like a lot of the live bears and stuff like that. So I got the half black, half gold leery tail mollies,
Okay.
and was wondering whether or not they were going to actually breed almost true, where it's half black, half gold, and they're actually coming out half black, half gold. They're not spotty, they're not anything like that. I've had them for I'd say 3.5, 4 months now, and they're just now starting to have babies now. The blue platies, same thing. They just now started having babies, and I've had them for a while.
Hmm.
But the guppies, that thing's all by the time it's over with, you have a million of them. But you got to be careful. Like one of my outdoor ponds that I have out there right now, I have muck guppies in it. You know, there's a big market on them
Yeah.
because you get all these different colors, you get all these patterns, you get all these different lineages on them and stuff like that. So you're going to have different things. But my half black red roses, those are breeding true, and I want to keep that line going. But
Yeah.
later on, in order to keep things going true, every once in a while you got to add some new into the colony because if you keep breeding the line, it's eventually going to go wild. So
Yeah.
you got to bring something in new later on. So
Well, I
you
don't
can
think the
take
going wild is as much of an issue as deformities.
right,
I think that's really what starts happening. You start having a
hmm
lot of bent spines, a lot of
right,
because and that's where it's good to be able to network because you could find
right,
somebody else that has a similar strain
hmm
they're not as inbred with the ones you have, and you can kind of
right,
bring in a little bit of a fresh blood. But it's or if you're really feeling brave, you bring in uh you know females that have not been that were juveniles, and then
right,
try to rework the line back
hmm
to what it is to
hmm
establish it. And that's, you see, when I made the mistake when I was starting out again. I didn't
Right.
understand the pricing on some of these lines.
Uh-huh.
I was like, wow, why are they like $50 for a trio?
Right.
This is just guppies. Well, now that I've been in here long enough and I've
Hmm.
actually tried to establish a line, I get it. I
Right.
get the pricing on some of these fish
Hmm.
is because it takes several years of
Right.
work
Hmm.
to try to get that genetic to do what you say it's going to do.
Hmm.
And so now it makes sense. But the problem is a lot of the a lot of the new hobbyists don't understand that. They just assume, oh, it's a guppy. I see the guppies at PetSmart. They're only like $3 for each.
Right.
Why are you,
Hmm.
but you don't get that until you actually start getting, I guess,
Right.
the straight lines start becoming more of an experienced hobbyist,
Hmm.
uh, where you start appreciating the value in them because you go,
Right.
okay, I know, I have a notion of the amount of work that I had to get to be able to get that particular strain.
Hmm.
And but the problem is that that value only holds for a very limited amount of time because the more they start getting out there, now you've
Right.
established that line, then they
Correct.
start
Yep.
so
Then the price starts dropping after that.
dropping,
Yep.
dropping, dropping.
Yep. So very true. But I like what I'm doing though. It's and the calling part is and here's an experience that I just had with one of mine. Um, the Israeli blues that I have. One of the babies had a bent spine, and I kept him in the tank, and his spine actually straightened out.
Huh,
Never seen that before. But
okay.
his spine started straightening out again, and he's actually got a very nice flow to them in the tank itself. I mean, some bent spines you'll get them and they'll just keep getting worse and worse and worse over time. But this one it actually started straightening out, and I don't know if it's a miracle. I don't know if it's the law of nature or something like that, but it actually started straightening out and stuff like that. So,
Now, is that something that you're gonna try to separate just to make sure that
oh
it's not
yeah,
a
oh
genetic?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. I separate it. I'm gonna put it in with a couple of females and see whether or not it will actually come back out again
Hmm.
and start breeding right without a bent spine. Because, like you said, sometimes it's genetics and sometimes it's not. It's
Yeah.
just it's a waiting game, you know. But I do call my tanks and stuff like that. My whatever I call out goes right in the mutt tank anyway. So what happens in that happens in that. Um, I don't euthanize the fish unless I know they're really, really bad and they're struggling. Then I'll euthanize one. But other than that, I let them live with a deformity tank.
Well, that's what my coal tank is. I call it a tall. When I was That's when I was adamantly trying to straighten out a line,
Hmm.
and I wasn't gonna discard, just throw them away. So I have
Right.
I took inspiration from Stevens P's Mosh Pit Aquarium,
Uh huh. Right.
and I said, you know what, I got a 55-gallon that I can throw these guys in there. They'll live as long as they want to live, or they can live, and then
Hmm.
I'm not going to worry because that's not necessarily what I'm trying to straighten out.
Right.
And some of them make it, some of them eventually will just die because their
Hmm.
genetics are weak.
Right.
But that's just what it is. I mean, it's just I do it that way, but that's because I don't have the heart to put them down.
I don't either. I don't like to euthanize anything if I don't have to. I guess it's liking nature too much to do that. Everything has a right to live when it's born. That's kind of what I think. But sometimes you have to though, because you can actually see them struggling. You know, they'll sit on the bottom and they'll just you can tell that their breathing is messed up or they can't get around in the tank. They can't swim around. Then of course you have to do something.
Yeah.
But other than that, let them live. Um, I thought about setting up a tank that's just deformity tank, got spines, everything like that. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just I don't know. I've really have enjoyed what I've been doing with
Hmm.
the fish that I have. I mean, I don't keep anything exotic or fancy because I don't
Right.
have access to them. That's the reality. But
Right.
what I do have, though, I still enjoy. I mean, that's
Hmm.
at the end of the day, what I want to do is be able to sit there and just watch them do their
Right.
thing, and you know, that's the reason why I got the aquariums in the first place.
Hmm.
It never was really with the ideology that I was going to make it a business.
Hmm.
Now, the more you get into this, the more you start learning, and then you want to go, okay, well, can I breed these guys? Or you start seeing them breed in your aquarium and go, oh, okay, well, maybe I can pull these guys aside and see what happens.
Right.
And that's kind of my my growth has been is just by accidentally breeding something
Hmm.
and going, oh, wait a minute. Well, now that I see that they're willing to breed, let me see if I can replicate this. And then before you know it, you just figured out how to breed a certain species of fish.
Right.
So,
Right. It's
but
it's like what I'm trying out with the rice fish right now. I mean, it's I've never had them before, so this is a new venture for me in trying to figure it out. Um, when I see one baby, I get all excited. It's new life. I succeeded. I did something right, you know. But my guppies, I think my guppies are going to be, my thing. Um, and from a business point, I think that guppies, no matter where you go, no matter what fish store you go into, no matter if it's their cichlid or whatever type of fish store you get into, everybody always buys guppies. Everybody does. Um,
well, there's a reason why the big box stores carry the fish that they carry. It
mhm,
just, they're the highest selling species of fish,
exactly.
you know. And if you're trying to really cater to a wide market, then you got to have some of the
Mhm,
the stuff that people are going to want.
right.
Although the reality is businesses like yourself or any of the smaller online businesses, you're going to get some new traffic, but more than likely it'll be more experienced hobbyists. So yeah,
Hmm.
they'll appreciate a straight line of fish, kind of
Right.
like what you're well, kind of like what Michael does.
Right.
And then you'll get to the point where you won't be able to keep up with the demand that you got to import
Hmm.
stuff,
Right.
which is a good problem to have.
Right. Right. I've even looked in the importing thing and stuff like that, and there's so much stuff out there that contradicts one thing from the other one. So I'm and that's good to be able to find out about Aquafont and his stuff there, and I'm gonna start talking to him probably next weekend. I got a busy week coming up at work and stuff like that, but I want to start finding out what I got to do and things like that to get this thing really going. Um, so who knows? I mean, I like I said before, I know this is what I want to do, and I'm going to succeed at it. You know, it's just the way I am. I have a drive. I have a drive, and it's just what I want to do, and I just want to. I'm getting older, and I want to. If I'm going to make money for anybody, I want to make money for me
Got it.
and not everybody else. So, but I like what I'm doing. Like I said, I come down here to my fish room when I get aggravated at work, and I'll come down here and I'll just sit in my tanks for a couple hours just watching them, just to relax. So when I said in the beginning, it's all therapeutic for me. It there is a lot of therapeutic in it for me as well. Working on the fish tanks, cleaning them out, adding water into them, setting up ponds outside, working with everything. It's for me, it's therapeutic. Gets my mind off of the everyday bullshit. you
Yeah.
know.
Well, Bill, believe it or not, we've been on for 2 hours.
There's no way.
So
Wow.
before we get out of here, is there
Okay.
anything else you want to share that we haven't been able to talk about?
No, not really. Just anybody has any questions, just reach out and ask me. I mean, I do have an email. I'll start putting that in my videos. So anybody has any questions, just reach out.
Do
Um,
you have that on your about of your YouTube channel?
I haven't figured that part out yet. I got to figure that part out too.
Okay.
I'm, this whole YouTube thing is all new to me. So slowly I'm starting to see everything, editing videos and things like that. Because I don't edit my videos. I put them together and I put them out there. People
Yeah,
see
that's
me
why I
for
said
me.
you and I are very similar because I don't do a whole lot of heavy editing. Funk does editing.
Right.
Funk does a lot of editing. Fathom Aquatics does really good editing. I don't do editing. I'm
No,
just a talking
no.
head in front of a camera. I don't even cut out my ums and uhs and
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I'm too lazy.
It's you being you. I mean, that's what it's about. They're seeing me like I am, you know. That's
Yep.
what, and I want people to see that. I want people to see
Now,
me for who I am.
one thing I've been wanting to mention before we get out of here. Are you
Uh-huh.
familiar with Fish Fan Links?
No, oh,
Oh,
I've seen a few of their videos and stuff like that, but no, I've
okay.
seen Michael's Fish Room as part of the Fish Fam Link and all that.
Well,
So
most of us are here, and it's free.
okay,
Um, what's great about it is it's a place where people can find you.
okay,
It's a like a community site that
hmm,
one of our fellow hobbyists put together, Matt. And
okay,
there's several people in here in the chat that are also helping keep that page alive. But it'll allow you to put all your contact information, your channel, all that stuff in one place where people can find you.
okay,
When you drop videos, they'll send out alerts that you're dropping out videos. If you ever get into doing live streams, which I hope you
hmm,
do, um, it'll announce that you're going live and stuff like that.
okay,
It's a great resource to have, where people will be able to find you. Curtis just dropped the link for that. I
okay,
can also send you uh, a link for it.
okay,
I know Steven, I don't know if, I know Jenna and Mandy and all of them do a great job of trying to put these new channels on there and keeping it
hmm,
updated. So but it's a great little resource for the entire community to have.
okay,
And
okay. Yeah, I'd like to get that from you if you don't mind.
yeah, and also it'll let you know of other content creators that are out there, and
Okay.
you'll find people that you'll you'll jive with, and
Hmm.
start growing your community, your networking.
Right, right. That's what it's all about. That's what
and
I'm trying to do.
and hopefully out of this, some of these people that are watching that weren't aware of who you were, and people that are going to watch this in the future, if they watch the replay, they'll go and check out your channel, and if they like it, they'll hopefully pick up a couple of subs. Hey, Kenny. um oh, Tony, how you doing, Tony? And so it's just, I want to see more of what you're doing in the future, and I wish you the best of luck. And
Well,
I've been enjoying the content you've been putting out. I know it's been a little while since you dropped the video,
right. Yeah,
but I get that too.
it's been hectic at work. I've been working hours, and then I took a small little vacation that I needed to. I hadn't taken a vacation in a while, so I had to um take a little break, you know. But I just made a video today, and I'll probably do a couple more this week and stuff like that. So, but I want to say thank you for having me on your channel here. I was excited when you actually reached out. I was like,
Oh,
yeah. I'm watching this guy's videos, and he's like, he keeps it real. He's kind of like me, you know. He tells it like it is, and and doing a live stream like this, I want to do live streams, but I got to figure out how to do it. And this here is a good experience, and
well,
I
this
really,
platform, and I'm not married to a platform, but I know this
mhm,
is the one that I started with. What I
right,
like about it is you can use it for free.
hmm,
Um, there are like everything else, I like to try stuff out first before I really commit to something.
right,
One, I didn't think I was going to be doing live streams very often, and
uh-huh,
it's sort of become something that I've truly enjoyed, because it's granted me an opportunity to meet people like you and meet just about half of the people that are on the chat right now,
right,
and there's still the other half that I still need to be able to have on here.
uh-huh,
Well, that'll accept the invitation to be on here. And because if it were up to me, every single one of them would have already been here with me. But I get it. Some people don't like being in front of a camera, and that's totally understandable. Um,
Well, when you asked me for my email address, and I first got your email and stuff like that, I'm looking at, I'm like, there's no way this is happening. There's no way that somebody's asking me to do this. I never thought it would become. I didn't think it would ever gonna happen. You know.
Why not? You're an interesting person. I like what you're doing. And just like I find it interesting, there's obviously 300 and some people that have found it interesting. And, it's just one of those. Damn, Eduardo. Thank you. Um, it's just one of, I, I usually, here's the way I look at this. And I'm very simple. I'm not a very complicated person. And usually my marker is if I find it interesting, there's probably a likelihood that there's at least 10 other people that are going to find it interesting and enjoy it. And
Right.
Fortunately for me, is giving me a little bit of an opportunity to pay back what was done for me in the very beginning when I was starting out like you.
Right.
And by no means this I hate saying this because it makes it seem like, oh, you think you're something special because you have this many people following you. It's not that.
Right.
But I did appreciate the fact that when people had a lot more subscribers than I did, and they were able to give me a spotlight to try to present myself to the community,
Right.
and be, and more than anything, just to be part of the community. That was really all I was seeking to do, just to be kind of brought into the circle,
Right. Right.
where it's just instead of just being a name that was amongst the chat. Now I started establishing friendships and more than anything else, friendships and people with
Right.
our kindred spirits, because we're part of this hobby. That was a big deal for me.
Right.
Fortunately for me, it's gotten to the point where I think I found what I truly enjoy about the hobby, and well, not just the hobby, but the other side of it. Oh, there is Fish on Links. Thanks for dropping in there. Hopefully, you guys will be able to add Bill's channel to that, and just granting me that opportunity to get to meet more and more people every day. It's really selfish. It's self-serving because it's something that I've been able to experience, and every time I get to have these podcasts, I get to learn a little bit more about the people that I enjoy watching, and a friendship kind of comes out of it too.
Right.
It's one of those things where just unintentionally that's what it becomes,
Right.
and that's what I wanted to say. Thank you so much for accepting, because it's real easy to say, whatever, I don't want, I don't have time for that, but
Right.
I know you guys are taking time out of your day to just hang out, and I don't forget about that. I really do appreciate that. And hopefully by being here, I can have other people be aware of the fact that you're around too. So that's,
Right.
if I can accomplish those two things,
Mhm.
shit, I'm happy.
And like I said, I appreciate you having me on here. It for you to reach out and the way I've seen your channel and stuff like that, it meant a lot that you reached out and asked me to do this. I mean, it coming from a jarhead and stuff like that. That not a lot of things happened in my lifetime throughout my whole life and stuff like that, but something like this where I want to try to do something and have somebody actually come and ask me to do something like this, it meant a lot. It really did. And I want to thank you for that. I
No.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Because without you being here, this wouldn't be
Right,
going on.
right,
I mean, I talk a lot, but I don't like talking to myself. I'd rather have a conversation, and you guys accepting to come up here makes it real easy, because I don't know. I can't sit up here for this long. I don't know. I'm always fascinated with people like Aquafunk
uh-huh,
or the King of DIY, or people that can do this by themselves
right,
and get up there and just talk.
hmm
Man, that's something I wish I could do. I
I,
can't I can't talk for that long. Not 2 hours for sure.
right. And and I am not a public speaker. Trust me when I say I am not a public speaker. I suck when I get up in front of a group of people. But this tonight, has been like natural. It's been real
What's a
comfortable.
conversation? I can do conversation.
Right.
Public speaking I got to work at. That's
Uh-huh.
because you're trying to present information.
Right.
That requires a lot of work.
Hmm.
That requires preparation and knowledge and understanding of the subject matter you're going to talk about.
Right.
This is, I mean, this is just
Two,
talking.
two guys hanging out, having a
Pretty
talk. That's all we're
much.
doing. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
pretty much. It's just I've always told people it's a conversation you and I are having, but we're sharing it with the people that are here in the chat.
Right.
And so far, they've told me they like it, and they demonstrate it because they come back time after time. So I must be onto something. So I'll continue to do it as long as people want to watch it and they want to are interested in what I'm doing. I'll continue to do it. This is something that I could feasibly do until I'm no longer here. It's just talking. It's just talking.
Yep, that's all it is. But yeah, I appreciate this whole thing. You don't know. You don't know how much this means just being on here, being able to talk, and actually being able to talk to somebody else about the hobby, about all the things and everything else that's out there. We started off the conversation about the military. I mean, we we did a whole range tonight, and
Well,
it's nice.
it's I. Here's the thing, though. We're just more than fish keeping.
Hmm.
Fish keeping happens to be just an aspect of who we
Right,
are,
right.
but we're a lot more complicated than that.
Hmm.
And I like the fish part is what kind of drew me to finding your channel.
Right.
But once I started there, is like, oh, okay, Bill's pretty interesting. Let's get to know Bill a little bit more. And it's not something I'm going to be able to accomplish over, posting comments on a video.
Right.
It
Right.
just you could have a conversation like that, but I'm impatient. I want to be able to get an answer pretty quick. And what better way to have you on and just be able to have that
Right.
conversation with you. And here's the thing, though. There's a lot of these guys that are and gals that are here with me will reach out and say, hey, have you seen so and so? They're also pointing me to people like you. It's not just
Right.
me going out there. It's funny because it's kind of become a little competition between like Curtis, Jeff, and especially Curtis and Jeff.
Hmm.
They're out there just like me, trying to find other people in the community.
Right.
But one of the things that I always like doing is I'll hit on the comments after I find a channel for the first time, and I always try to go see. It's that Christopher Columbus kind of philosophy is like, I want to plant that flag to be the first one in the community to say, hey, I found so and so. But it's always funny because when I think that I found a new channel, I'll look, what's Jeff's new? Oh, Empire of Dirt and Crayons will be on there. And then I look down, then Skull Aquatics, and then it's like, oh, these guys beat me to the punch. And I don't know how many times I've had recommendations from them and other people. It's like, oh, you need to check out so and so, and and it's just like it's been great. There's like 6 people in here currently right now that I just need to pin down a date that we can do this that I'm going to have up here. But just for one reason or another, we just haven't jived on a date, which I don't look at it as other than it's going to happen when it needs to happen and it'll be good. There's a reason why it's not working out right now, but but when it does, I know it's going to be well worth the wait. I know MC Aquatics is another guy that he's been having some health issues and stuff like that. And I think now he finally told me the other day he's ready to do this. I'm still waiting on Anthony to kind of suggest some dates and stuff like that. But it's just, these are all people that I've kind of reached out and we're, eventually we'll get around to having this conversation. I want to have a conversation with everybody that I've met over the years. Even though we've shared screen on somebody else's live stream, that doesn't mean that person and myself can't sit down and have a conversation. And I always love it. I always love it when people also reach out to me and say, hey, I'm interested, because then that just makes it that much easier because then we just need to work out a date.
Right,
So,
right.
but with that being said, again, thank you so much for being here. Hopefully, well, not hopefully. I know a lot of the people here, they stuck around. They stuck around
Right.
for almost 2.5 hours, and so
Wow.
they've actually, to me, that's a telltale sign that they also enjoyed this conversation that I had with you. So, I wish you the best of luck, Bill, and don't become a stranger. And hopefully, we'll see. I know I started seeing you more in the chats, and
Right.
to see you on some of the other live stream chats too. And
Yeah,
um, we'll,
a
we'll,
lot of times what happens when you do your live streams and stuff like that, sometimes I have to work over at my job and stuff like that. So I try to catch the live streams. It's not I actually go back in the replay. So
well, my
yeah,
live streams are the hardest ones to catch,
uh-huh.
just because I don't have a fixed schedule.
Right.
At first, I thought that was going to be a problem because I know people like to schedule things and stuff
Hmm.
like that. But it's really been
Right.
a blessing because it's allowed me to adjust to people's schedules.
Uh-huh.
And one thing that I find fascinating, and the reason I can say that people kind of enjoy this is they'll actually go back and watch the replay. And I've
Right.
had a lot of, and the way I know people are really watching the replay, because they'll be making comments about a conversation that took place hour and a half, hour 45 minutes into
Hmm.
the stream, and
Right.
they'll make a comment about that. And a lot of the times it'll be like, oh yeah, I had the similar experience or something like that. So I know people are watching it,
Hmm.
and for that I just want to say thank you. I tell people don't worry about it if you didn't get to watch the live. I know the big part about the live is being able to interact
Right.
in the chat. Unfortunately, I'm a horrible host when it comes to acknowledging the chat. I try to do
Uh-huh.
a little. I think I've improved a little bit more, and the problem is I get sidetracked real easily. My attention
Right.
span is real narrow, and if I'm
Uh-huh.
not really paying attention to what you're saying, I'm hearing it, but I'm not
Right.
listening, which are
Correct.
two different things.
Right.
And I rather listen than hear.
Hmm.
Um, and so when I really get into the conversation, I I just can't. I don't have that innate ability to be 100% in the chat and 100% with the person that I'm inviting on
Right.
to speak with.
Hmm.
And so I try to strike a balance. I'm I notice that it gets a little bit easier, but I'm nowhere near as good as some of these people that I watch. That is like they're right in the conversation and they're right there with the chat, man. It's
Right.
I find that ability to be incredible. I
Uh-huh.
wish I could be better at that, but
Right.
I'm not ignoring the chat that's here. I mean, I apologize that I don't interact more with them,
Right.
um, but I have a guest, and I really want to focus on my guest. And
Hmm.
I'm working on it. It's a work in progress.
Right. Awesome. But like I said, thank you so much for having me on here. I really, really, really appreciate it, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it too. I want to get to know, talk to you more too. One on one. It was a good experience for me.
Well,
It
and
really
here's the
was.
thing: I have no problem with if somebody wants me to have a conversation with, just reach out.
Hmm.
I'm not the only opposition is going to be whether my availability, but
Right.
I have no problems. Anybody that would want to have me on, I'm more than happy to come
Right.
on. Especially, you know, if I have that expectation of other people, why am I going to put myself in a situation where it's like, nah, I don't have time for that.
Right.
That's not the
Right.
way this works.
Hmm.
So and Eduardo, yeah, I've had you on, Eduardo, but it wasn't as a guest. Oh, I thought I had you on as a guest, but we talked about other stuff. But I got to bring on Eduardo as Master Aquatics
Uh,
as and be able to talk to Eduardo for and
right.
get to know him a little bit better. Although a lot of us had known him, but I'm sure there's still much more to unpackage there.
Right. Right.
But
Awesome.
with that being said, thank you guys once again for putting up with us. Shit, almost 2.5 hours now.
Wow.
And but uh but thank you so much, and we'll catch you guys soon.
All right.
Um, I might be a little bit sparse the month of June just because I'm having my grandkids over. I really want to spend some time with them. They're starting to get older and older, and
Hmm.
I know I might have if I'm lucky, another 5 years before they hit the teenage years. And then once teenagers become teenagers, the last thing they want to do is hang out with grandpa and grandma. So,
I hear
but
that.
thank you guys. I appreciate every single one of you. Bill, again, thank you so much. And we'll see you guys in the next one. You guys take care.
Thanks a lot. Y'all have a good night now. Appreciate it.